What's up, everyone? Tera Roberts here with Fantasy Alarm, and we are talking DFS bargains for Week 11. We are on a roll with the 5K range quarterbacks, so let's see if we can hit twice this week. Yes, I am giving you two options, one safe and one very risky. The safe option at quarterback is Daniel Jones at 5,700 on DraftKings against Detroit. The Giants' offense runs through Saquon Barkley, and Jones is a low-volume passer. But in matchups where Saquon can run the ball freely up and down the field, it opens up touchdown opportunities on limited passes for Daniel Jones. The result is games like last week against Houston, where Saquon had 35 carries and Jones had 17 attempts, but 2 passing touchdowns. Add on some yards on the ground, and suddenly you get that super safe Daniel Jones floor. This week against Detroit is the same setup, and Jones could be a solid option with upside if he can also find the end zone on the ground. The risky option is Russell Wilson at 5,800 on DraftKings against Las Vegas. If you want a spicy GPP play, I don't hate Russ this week against the Raiders. I'm sure everyone else hates it after he underwhelmed in what should have been a very pass-friendly matchup against Tennessee last week. If you play him, it has to be stacked with Courtland Sutton with Jerry Jeudy out and Greg Dulcich. The Week 4 matchup against Las Vegas was by far Wilson's best game of the season with 3 total touchdowns. Vegas is the biggest mess in the NFL. And while I get that it's difficult to trust Russ, it is a top-tier matchup. At running back, Trestan Ebner is an interesting option at 4,200. David Montgomery will lead the way, so Ebner is more likely just a complimentary piece this week. But given the matchup against Atlanta, Chicago's offense should thrive and provide ample opportunities on the ground. And if 8 to 10 carries can shift towards Ebner, and maybe a little bit of receiving work as well, Ebner could be a low-priced hit. If you want to get a bit more expensive but still a clear bargain play, go with Latavius Murray at 5K on DraftKings. The Denver backfield has offered very limited upside, but this week is an interesting setup to take a swing at an upside play with Murray. While Gordon leads the way in snap count, Murray typically matches his carries and has had 2 touchdowns on the ground in the past 3 games. The Raiders have been obliterated across the board on defense and have given up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Another option is Jaylen Warren at 4,900. Najee Harris is dealing with what Mike Tomlin called discomfort in the knee. If that discomfort limits him in any capacity and Warren continues to see an uptick in snap count and carries, he offers potential upside this week. Now, if we get to Sunday and the news is that Harris is fine and there's no issue, I would not use Warren, so stay alert and follow updates. Moving on to wide receiver, my hands down absolute favorite play of the week here is Nico Collins. It's not even close at just 4,100 on DraftKings. This is absolutely insane pricing for Nico Collins because he has been outperforming Brandon Cooks and has had 3 double-digit fantasy points in PPR in 3 of his last full healthy games. All of them. Collins caught 5 of 10 targets for 49 yards and a touchdown last week and can continue that momentum against the Washington Commanders, who have allowed the 9th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Another option is Terrace Marshall at 4,400. Marshall is coming off an awful performance of 1 reception after putting up 2 solid performances. But considering that PJ Walker completed 10 passes, 1 reception was kind of a blessing. But Baker Mayfield is back at quarterback this week. And while that has typically been a bad thing for DJ Moore, it might not be the worst case scenario for Terrace Marshall. Baker has a bit of a habit of avoiding his top receiver, perhaps because that top receiver sees top coverage. Marshall is the clear wide receiver 2 in this offense, and Baltimore has given up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. This is a good matchup, and Baker starting could actually benefit Marshall. It is a risky option because Carolina could just dig their feet in and decide that they are just going to stay committed to the run. But I am willing to take the risk in tournament play. And at tight end is very, very ugly this week in value plays, so I am going super deep. At bare minimum tight end pricing, you could try Lawrence Cager. Go with me on this. Cager was elevated from practice squad last week and caught 2 passes for a touchdown. And while this could be a fluke, he did play 65% of snaps while the next highest tight end was at 23%. Detroit is an excellent matchup, giving up the third most fantasy points at tight end. Again, this is a reach, but if you're looking to punt and Kager is active and raised from the practice squad again, he could be your guy. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to Fantasy Alarm, and come back next week for another round of DFS bargains.